Okay, so we're going to deal with a 40-year-old male who's 6 feet tall, 175 pounds, and has a desk job with little exercise, and he wants to gain muscle and lose fat. So we go up to the top here, and it's already, I think it defaults to male, and he's 40 years old, and you can either put pounds or kilograms. He weighs 175 pounds, and let's make him 5'9", so that'd be 69 inches. And you see how it converts it automatically to centimeters. And up here at the top, he has a desk job with a little exercise, and he wants to gain muscle, reduce fat, and let's say realistically, for best results, 6 meals a day is what you want, and the default for the macronutrient ratio is 50% carbs, 30% protein, and 20% fat. Now you can change these, but I highly recommend that you stick with that ratio. Okay. Now if you look down, now his basal metabolic rate is 1,759 calories. That's the number of calories his body needs just to maintain its normal functions. That's if he just laid in bed 24 hours a day and did nothing. Now, we said he wants to gain muscle, lose fat, and to do that, that's 2,111 calories. And as you see, there's no estimated weight loss because he's going to replace any fat loss with muscle. Okay, and he's going to need 351 calories per meal, and this gives you the protein, carbohydrate, and fat amounts. Okay. However, compare that to the example we just gave. All right. It's pretty close. This is pretty close to the 2,334 calories, but there's something wrong with both numbers, and I wonder if you can guess what it is. Okay, I'll tell you. How is this person going to gain muscle and lose fat if he has a desk job with little exercise? You know, it's going to be very difficult because once he starts reducing his, first of all, if he doesn't do any exercise, he's not going to gain muscle. And if you selected up here a 20% calorie reduction, now you can see he would have to consume only 1,689 calories, which is even below his basal metabolic rate. Well, all the body is going to do is go into starvation mode. So anyway, he can't lose weight and gain muscle on the either 2,334 calories or the 2,111 calories. So this is not taken into consideration his cardio training and his strength training he's going to have to do to lose weight. So those increased activities and newly formed muscles he's going to build are going to burn additional calories. Don't you think so? Remember, if you're strength training, cells are dying and replenishing all the time. In this case, new ones are being built because he's doing strength training. Therefore, you're going to need additional protein and calories. After all, you're trying to build some muscle so that you don't want to lose that instead of the fat. You want to lose the fat, right? So if you had additional protein, then you need to add carbs and fats as well in order to maintain this 50, 30, 20. If you change one of these, the percent one, it's going to automatically change one or the both. So if you increase the protein, you're going to have to increase the carb and fat to maintain the 50, 30, 20 ratio. So let's choose, let's go back up here and choose, he's going to, instead of a desk job with a little exercise, he's going to go up and choose 3 to 5 hours of moderate exercise per week. Let's say he does, that could be just cardio, you know, he could do cardio training 30 minutes a day, 7 days a week, and what, that's 3.5 right there. Just throw in a little 15 or 20 minutes of weight training per day, and you've got your 5 hours at least right there. Okay, now we're going to go back to gain muscle, reduce fat. Now let's take a look. Okay. Now his TDEE, his total daily energy expenditure, is 2,727 calories. And that's a lot bigger than the 2,334 or the 2,111 that we looked at. And it's because our original calculations did not take into consideration his activity levels. And you'll also notice that the protein went up to 1.16 grams per pound of body weight. Remember, our original example was based, rule of thumb was 1 gram of protein per body weight. Well, it's going up to 1.16 because he needs that extra protein to build the muscle. Now, I will say there's one exception to these calculations. That is, if you're walking around with 30% or more from excess body fat, and let's say you're a 5'5" woman and you weigh 280 pounds, and you obviously do not need 275 or 280 grams of protein based on the 1 gram per pound of body weight, because you don't have that much lean body mass. So in that case, that would probably be excessive protein. Not that it would harm you, but it's just kind of wasteful because your body, doesn't handle the conversion of excess protein to energy very well, and you're just going to excrete a lot of excess protein. So in that case, you would need to calculate your lean body mass and base your protein to 1 gram per pound of body weight based on lean body mass, and I'll be doing another video on how you can calculate that. So think about what I've just said and perhaps replay the video up to this point, because now I'm going to explain why you need to always combine carbs, proteins, and fats together in a meal and never eat them separately. Okay, let's talk about carbs first. Okay, you eat carbs. They get digested and enter the bloodstream. Okay, and then a substance called insulin detects it and it enters the bloodstream. Insulin's job is to escort these carbohydrates to where they are needed in the body. Think of insulin like a taxi or a bus driver. If you were to just eat carbs by themselves and in large amounts, say for instance, like you just eat 3 large meals per day, then there's going to be more energy from the carbs than are needed for immediate use, or even to be converted into glycogen and stored in the liver and muscles. So where do you think the excess will be stored? In fat cells. However, if you consume the carbs with protein and fat, the insulin response is much less pronounced and takes place over a longer period of time. You might say it's a much more smooth and gradual response because by eating all 3 food types together, the carbohydrates are absorbed into the bloodstream over a longer period of time. Which leads me to my next point. Why you should be eating every 2 to 3 hours in small portions. Well, smaller meals mean a smaller amount of calories that will more closely match your body's caloric needs at the time, and there will be far fewer carbohydrate calories left over to be stored as fat. Also, since it takes about 2 to 3 hours to digest a meal, and because your body cannot store protein, you need protein with each and every meal to meet your cell's needs because you're cardio and strength training, right? Now, the same goes for fat. By eating small portions in the right proportions, very little is kept in storage as fat for long at any given time. It is being burned along with the carbohydrates. And since you're doing your cardio and strength training, a lot of it is being burned. Make sense? And now just a few brief words about the quality of macronutrients to eat. Let me begin by pointing out that the absolutely worst food combination you can put in your body if you're concerned about weight is fat plus sugar. Now, donuts and Twinkies come to mind here as a classic example. Another substance you should avoid is white flour, because it's essentially the same as, your body recognizes it essentially the same as sugar, because it's such a simplified carbohydrate that it's almost immediately absorbed into the bloodstream as sugar. In general, avoid anything with white flour and or sugar. And that's all I'll say on that subject for now. Now, just to go over again how I came up with the 15 to 20% of calories from fat. All right. Well, from the math, obviously. If you're consuming 50 to 55% of calories from protein, then that only leaves 15 to 20% of calories from fat if you're also getting 30% from protein, which makes sense really from a logical perspective. After all, unless you are a marathoner, an ultra marathoner, or living in extremely cold environments where eating raw fat constantly is required just to stay alive, an average person trying to lose weight doesn't need more than 20% of their calories from fat. And don't forget, fat yields not 4 calories per gram, but 9 calories per gram. So it is an energy-dense food. Now keep in mind that carbs and protein yield 4 calories per gram, all right, but fat over twice. Now, your body uses fat calories during slow, sustained activities, such as walking slowly, or when it has run out of stored carbohydrates. And these stored carbohydrates are called glycogen, as I mentioned before. Anyway, that's why bodybuilders might drop down to a diet of 40% from carbs, 40% from protein, and 20% from fat before competition. Because by dropping the amount of carbohydrates and raising the proteins, with all the intense weightlifting and cardio they're doing, their body is forced to consume fat for additional calories. However, this ratio will eventually leave most people feeling fatigued after a while, and even they don't try to even these bodybuilders don't try to maintain that ratio for more than a few weeks at a time. That 40-40-20 ratio is in fact very close to the zone diet, which you may have heard of, which is a 40-30-30. And again, it's hard, you can't stay on that kind of diet forever because you just won't feel right. So, okay, just remember, there are no rules set in concrete for these macronutrient ratios. However, if you research what competitive bodybuilders or any athlete concerned about their physique used, you'll find that a 50 to 55, 30%, 15 to 20% ratio will suit the majority of people trying to lose weight. And it is an easy ratio to maintain for daily life after you've shed the pounds. Also, as I just pointed out, this ratio is not set in stone, and some people might get better results with more carbs and less protein. See what works best for you. And I know you vegetarians out there will disagree with me about such high protein amounts, but we'll just have to agree to disagree. And I'll point out that I don't know of many vegetarian champion bodybuilders. Now, I ask you to keep the following in mind. The problem inherent with the vast majority of people battling weight problems is that they go about the process of losing weight blindly. If you are serious about losing and keeping your weight off, then you must know what and how much you're eating. And the only way to precisely do this is to get out your Excel spreadsheet program and start inputting data. Watch my video on the site about how to plan your menus and count calories. So, that's all for now, and the very best to you. But, last but not least is a medical disclaimer. What I am recommending is my opinion, albeit based on personal experience and research. You should be cleared by your physician before pursuing this diet, particularly if you have known kidney disease.